as a pastor, maybe more so than any other profession, when it comes to being at someone's deathbed, seeing people pass on from this life to the next, unless you're in palliative care, unless you're a doctor or nurse or work at a hospice home, you probably don't see that as much as I do or other pastors. And then just frankly, even if you are in those professions, there's something that I get to do as a pastor. Oftentimes, families will invite me to come in and pray with a family member just before they pass, while they still have their mental faculties about them. And these are some serious memories that I've had over the years, and I'm going to be sharing those with you today. I'm not going to be making a lot of jokes. I'll do a couple here and there, but this is a really serious sermon. And I share that up front because when you're in a room and I'm sitting there, and sometimes I'll say, hey, I'd like to pray with this person. Do you want to pray with me? This person that doctor's already told him you only have a week or maybe less to live. You want me to just pray with you one-on-one? Would you like your family to stay here with you? And sometimes they'll say, no, let's have everybody stay in, and then I just do a prayer. Or sometimes they say, let's just do one-on-one. And sometimes when that happens and everybody clears the room, I get to see something that doctors never see, or nurses, or even family members. Because in that last moment, I will ask them, is there anything that you're wanting to get off your chest here before you go to meet the Lord? And a lot of times it's good things. Usually it is. Usually the person is a person of faith. That's why I've been invited to come with them, because they have a pastor that wants to pray with them. It means they believe in Jesus and the afterlife. But man, let me tell you what, and this is just where I lost it at first service, is, man, there is nothing darker and more heartbreaking when you look in someone's eyes and they are scared literally to death that they are going to go to hell forever. I've had pastors tell me, Steve, it's all been fake. I've been living a life of sin behind the scenes. I'm not even sure that I believe what I've been preaching about for 50 years. And when something like that happens, I see a lot of pain there. I want to give comfort, but listen, the scriptures tell us this. It is appointed for man to die, and after that comes the judgment. And so the sermon that I'm giving you today, I just want you to know, apart from a supernatural rapture that a very, 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 very small percentage of people will ever get to see or experience, one thing that we all have in common is that we are all going to die. And you don't always get the chance to know it a week ahead of time and have your pastor come in and get some things off your chest. I've had people tell me that they've murdered people before. I've had people tell me that they cheated on their wife for many years, that they stole money from their companies. And because of the choices they had made, they were just convinced, man, I'm going to die and go to hell. And so what I'm going to share with you today is Jesus' example for us. Not only when he was living his life on this earth did he model for us how we are to live our lives on earth, but when he was dying, he gave us 7 sayings from the cross. That's all that's listed in all the Gospels. Just 7 sayings of Jesus. But when we look at these sayings, I want you to know he is also modeling for us how to die, how to prepare for death. And so that's what I'm going to be sharing with you over the next 40 minutes, is how do we prepare for that day when God calls us home? We left off last week in John chapter 19, verse 15. And the Jews are crying out, the ones that hated Jesus, away with him, crucify him. And Pilate said to them, shall I crucify your king? And the chief priests answered, probably the first honest thing they had said all day, we have no king but Caesar. So Pilate delivered him over to them to be crucified. And when Jesus went out, bearing his own cross to the place called the place of a skull, which in Aramaic is called Golgotha, there they crucified him, and with him 2 others, one on either side, and Jesus was between them. Now, just to give you a little backstory that we see from the other Gospels, these guys were thieves and murderers. They were justly being crucified for their sins, for their crimes against society. They deserve that, and the Bible tells us that while they are being crucified, they are ridiculing Jesus, saying, man, aren't you supposed to be the Messiah? You said you were going to overthrow Rome. That's what we heard. What are you doing? Aren't you going to do something about this? And so they are making fun of him, just like hardened criminals might do. And so while they are making fun of him, while the Roman soldiers are making fun of him, while the high priest is making fun of him, while the religious leaders are mocking him, saying, won't you save yourself? As they're driving the nails, Jesus says, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And this is lesson number 1 that I want to give you this morning. Not just preparing you to die, but how to live life in general. Forgive those who have hurt you. Let go so you can be released. It's for your benefit. Now, I want you to understand this. When I tell you to let go, to forgive people, it doesn't mean what they did to you was okay. I say that to my wife and children early on, just teaching them. When I apologize to you, I don't want you to say back to me, it's okay, because it's not okay that I did what I did. That's why I'm apologizing to you. When we say it's okay, it's like it doesn't matter. It does matter. Sinning against others, sinning against God is a big deal, but it's important for us to come and apologize, but not only that, to receive that apology. And then when the Bible says to forgive, it means literally to let it go. To release that grip. I'm not going to throw that back in your face anymore. Now, that doesn't mean that you're saying, I forgive you. It doesn't mean, hey, you can punch me in the face again. It doesn't mean you need to return to that abusive situation. It doesn't mean that it gives them the right to hurt you over and over again. In no way. But what it means is I am going to forgive you the way Jesus forgives me. Jesus said it this way in the Lord's Prayer. You've prayed it many times. It says, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who have trespassed against us. Now, when you pray that, I got a question. Do you really mean that? Do you really want Jesus to forgive you in the same way that you forgive others? Probably not. And so this is a skill that we learn to acquire over time, is asking Jesus to give us the grace to forgive others the way we want him to forgive us. Now, let's think about this. How does Jesus forgive us? Does he forgive everybody on earth of every sin they've ever committed if they never asked for it? The answer to that's what? No. Part of the way Jesus forgives us is we come to Jesus and ask for forgiveness. And so part of us receiving forgiveness is we first must ask. And so what we're saying here is, in the same way I ask Jesus to forgive me of my sins, I will forgive others when they ask me for forgiveness. That said, I want to tell you something for your own good, not necessarily for the good of others. There was a time in my life where someone I considered a really good friend, and I didn't loan them, I gave them a 5-figure gift. And I thought they were a great friend. And it's still to this day. Now I know that they weren't. To this day, I still look back and I look at myself like, man, how stupid was I to give that amount of money to this person instead of giving it to my own kids who are in college or getting ready to go to college. It's still, I look back on it and I chalk it up, not that I haven't forgiven this, let that go, but I still chalk it up to just stupid on my part. I was naive. And when you see someone take something you give them, either your time, your talent, your resources, your energy, when you give somebody your best, when you give somebody your care, and then they turn around and abuse that grace you gave to them and abuse that good thing that you did for them, man, it would be really nice if everybody came back and said, if I got a call today and said, man, Steve, I'm so sorry I did what I did. That was wrong. I would like your forgiveness. But here's the deal. I've already let that go. Because here's the deal. If I'm walking around my whole life just like this all the time, holding on to something, I don't need to let go of it for their good. I need to let go of it for my good. All that tension in my arms, in my neck, or whatever, as long as I'm just going around being mad at them. So literally, as I'm preparing this sermon and going over in my office today, guess what haunting memory comes back to me? And I had to make a choice again. It's not a one-time choice to forgive. Whenever the devil brings it back to your memory, you have to remind yourself, I got to let that go. I got to lay that down again today. And sometimes when it's somebody really close to you that you live with or you work with all the time, you got to lay that memory down every single day and said, man, I am leaving that to God to take care of that situation. I'm not going to walk back into that abusive situation again. I'm not going to call and be friends all the time. I'm not going to beg them for friendship. But you know what I'm doing? I'm choosing to let that go, and I'm not going to think about that every day. Because here's the deal. When you're just holding on to that, man, how many of you, just by raise a hand, how many of you have been hurt by somebody before? All of you can raise your hand, but hold on, okay? Everybody's been hurt by somebody, okay? But it was years ago. And every once in a while, that memory will creep into your mind, and then all of a sudden you start reliving that, and then you start feeling all those emotions again. Then your heart starts beating. You start going into a cold sweat. Then you see the clock or the TV show you're watching, and you realize, I just went one whole commercial break. I just lost 10 minutes of my life giving it back to that person that hurt me. Has that ever happened to you? Raise your hand if that's ever happened. Like, I just dwell on the pain. Almost all of us have experienced that. Like, you just dwell on the pain, and it's killing you. It literally, the stress it causes, it's killing you. And so what I'm saying is, first of all, if someone comes back to you and asks for forgiveness, if we're going to forgive others the way Jesus forgave us, we don't have to say it's okay, but we do have to say, I'm going to let that go. I'm not going to gossip about you. I'm not going to talk about you. I'm not going to come after you. I'm not going to seek vengeance on you. Like I have, man. I've forgiven you. I've let that go. But sometimes they don't ask. And even when they don't ask, which the people at the cross, when Jesus said that, Father, forgive them, they don't know what they're doing. Had they asked for forgiveness at that point? And the answer to that's what? No. But yet he still chose to let that go. He was not going to hit heaven wide open with resentment in his heart toward those Roman soldiers. And I encourage you to do the same. Let it go. Back to the cross. These two guys have been ridiculing him. He says, we only have a record of one thing he says before this next part, which is, Father, forgive them all. And while he's saying, Father, forgive them, they don't know what they're doing, one of the criminals just keeps going. He's hanging there and he's railing against Jesus saying, are you not the Christ? Save yourself and us. We thought you were going to be the guy to get us out from under the Roman occupation. But one of the thieves, the one on the other side, rebuked him, the first criminal. And he said, do you not fear God? Since you are under the same sentence of condemnation, like, man, you're getting ready to go stand before God on Judgment Day, and you're ridiculing this guy in the middle. He says, we indeed justly, for we are receiving the due reward of our deeds. But this man has done nothing wrong. Not only had Jesus, man, this is prophetic. Not only had Jesus done nothing wrong to deserve death, he had done nothing wrong, period, ever. And then he said, Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Now, what's it going to look like when Jesus comes into his kingdom someday? That's what we're going to talk about. That's one of the things we're going to talk about on Friday night, at Good Friday night. What's it going to look like in between now and this next verse? Watch what Jesus says to him. He says, truly, I say to you. Now, before I go any further, I hope you guys do better than the first service on this. I'm going to give you a little quiz. Whenever Jesus says, truly, truly, I say unto you, or you're reading the old King James, verily, verily, I say unto you, why does he say that? Okay, why does he say, truly, truly, I say to you? Why does he say that? There, thank you. A lot more right answers. You're so much smarter than first service. You can tell them that, okay? One is pay attention. I heard that. First service got that. But what I didn't hear somebody say was, your tendency is going to not believe what I'm about to say next. It's the same thing if I would say, hey, Brandon, man, I got to tell you something. You're not going to believe this, but true, or to say it this way, man, I'm telling you the truth. The story I'm getting ready to tell you, it's true. Now, if I say to somebody, the story I'm getting ready to tell you, true story, why do you start out telling somebody true story? Why do you say that? Because when you start telling it, they're going to think this isn't a true story. This isn't true, or you pulling my leg. Like, that's what's going to cross your mind, right? So whenever you see Jesus say truly, it's a warning. Not only to the people he's speaking it to, but even to us as we read it today. Listen, our natural inclination is going to not believe what he's about to say next. And so what he's saying to this thief who's saying, I deserve to die, not only on the cross, but I deserve to go to hell. And I'm afraid of God. I'm in big trouble here, and so are you, buddy, over there. You're in big trouble too. We're getting ready to go. We're in big trouble. And Jesus said, hey, buddy, I'm going to tell you something, and you're not going to believe it. You're going to think that your salvation is based on all the good or bad things you've done in life. And if your salvation is based on whether you were a good or bad person, then yeah, you're right. What you've always believed, you are going to hell. But truly, I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise. Now, I got a question for you. Did Jesus get some holy water and baptize that guy while he was on the cross? Did he say, okay, get down from here and say 4 Hail Marys and give some money to the poor? All this thief did was see that Jesus was forgiving others, and he asked for a piece of that action. He recognized that Jesus was Messiah. And Jesus said, today you will be with me in paradise. Now, what is paradise? Well, I don't have time to do that today. We're going to go over that Friday night. There is a time that we're going to go to. We'll talk about Friday night. After we die, where do we go? We don't go to the heaven where the clouds and the angels, whatever. We go to a place called paradise. And then the next thing after paradise will be setting up the kingdom of God on earth, which is what these guys are talking about. We'll do that in more detail this Friday night. But between now and then, I want to give you this lesson from the cross. The only thing you can take to heaven is a friend. And sometimes you have to show forgiveness for them to receive the invitation. Like, this guy was bound for hell until he saw how Jesus did not treat others the way they were treating him. He saw Jesus dispensing grace. He was like looking at it like, man, if that had been me, I would have just cursed these people. I would have cursed them back. I would have hated them. No, he sees Jesus forgiving others, showing love even in this moment. And it changed that guy's heart. So listen, I want to say this to you. That person who has hurt you, those people who have caused you pain, sometimes you might have to model for them what grace looks like in order for them to be able to hear the gospel from you and for them to be able to ask for forgiveness. And that's what Jesus models here. Man, so often, I just want to remind you today, we do 2 major outreaches a year to reach our community. The trunk or treat, which, by the way, I need to mention this. One of the families you saw up here today, they are joining today because someone invited them to trunk or treat last fall. And they saw how much fun the college students were having there and how much fun the children were having there. And they were like, this might be a place where we want to raise our kids. And today they're a part of one church. And so my prayer is that today there will be even dozens of families that are invited by you to come down here. And while you come down here, say, how can I serve? Here's a great way for you to serve. It's just show up and go around and say, hey, how you doing? My name is. Do you go to church here? No, like, oh, well, this is a great church. If you ever want to visit, I'd love to see you. And then go talk to somebody else. But invite people, get them down here. Because listen, the only thing you can take with you to heaven is what? A friend. People, that's all. There's an old joke that pastors used to tell about how Angel Gabriel came down, and there was a rich man, and he came to him and he says, hey, we don't do this very often, but you haven't been very wise with your money, so we're going to give you 24 hours, and then you'll be dead. But we're giving you a 24 hours notice. We're going to come and get you tomorrow, so you better start making things right in the next 24 hours. And the rich man's like, oh, man, that's great. Okay, I'll be getting ready. And as Gabriel turns around to fly back to heaven, the rich man says, wait a minute. Hey, before you go, like, what am I able to take with me from down here on earth up to heaven when I go? And Gabriel says, you can't take anything from down here. You're not going to want anything from down here. No, I'm really, I tell you what, I'm going to go and give away just about everything I have. I'm going to try to make things right. But, man, at least let me take something. And Gabriel, like, walkie-talkies in. He was like, hey, all right. So they make okay, we're going to make an exception for you. You can bring one suitcase of stuff. Whatever you can get in one suitcase, you can bring that to heaven with you when you go in 24 hours, but nothing else. So the rich guy goes out and he starts giving money to the poor. He's giving it all away. He liquefies all of his assets, but he goes out and he holds back on, he says, man, what can I get as far as pound for pound, what is worth more? And he thought, gold, that's worth more than anything. So I'll get all my money, I'll buy all the gold that I can get in one suitcase, and then I'll give everything else I have away. And so that's what he does. He gets all his stuff, he buys up gold, he fills up the suitcase as much as he possibly can, zips it tight, gives everything else away to the poor, and here comes Gabriel the next day. He says, all right, Gabriel, I'm ready. And Gabriel says, oh, I see you got your suitcase. Yes, I do. Man, that's awful heavy. Gabriel, can you help me, sir? He's, sure. So they get it, they go up to heaven, they come to the pearly gates, St. Peter's there. And he walked up, and the guy says, oh, it's you. He says, I heard we made a special dispensation. Yes, you did. I'm happy to be here. And St. Peter looks at the suitcase. He says, what's that? And the guy said, well, Gabriel said that I could bring one suitcase of stuff on earth. One suitcase. Yeah. And he was like, man, we've never done that before. I know. I got a special rule for him. The guy says, okay. And Peter says, well, of all the things you could have brought on earth, what did you decide to bring with you? And he says, well, look here and see. And he opens it up and shows Peter the gold, and Peter looked at it and said, you brought pavement? Dun-dun-dun. Hey, where's Travis back there? Like the point of that is, in reality, man, the streets of heaven are lined with gold. The things that we think are most valuable on earth will be things we just trample on like they're nothing in heaven. And so let's remember, of all the things that we're building up on earth, man, build things that will last. And the way you build into things that will last for eternity is you build into people. That's why it's our motto here. It's our church theme. It's our mission. It drives everything to do. We exist to develop fully authentic followers of Christ who would develop other fully authentic followers of Christ. That's who we are. That's what we do. Okay? So model that, forgive others, take people to heaven with you, invite them to the Easter egg extravaganza. Okay. The next one. Jesus said, John 19:28. Now I'm really going to break this one down next week. Just going to do this very quickly. I thirst. What do we learn from Jesus? I mean, like, I got a question. When Jesus is sitting there on the cross, he says, oh, I'm thirsty. Could Jesus have said, let there be water, and rain would have just gone right into his mouth? What is he doing when he says, I thirst? Well, there's one thing that has to do with prophecy we'll talk about next week. But part of it is Jesus is giving people the opportunity to serve him. He is letting other people help him. And so this is an important lesson. And I want to say this, like, again, being a pastor in my 50s, I've got an advantage that I didn't have in my 30s. Having seen so many people go through life-ending illnesses, a lot of times people struggle with this, which is what Jesus modeled for us. They struggle with admitting their physical pain and their needs. So I want to encourage you to go ahead and practice this now, not just later at the point of death, but let those around you help you when you're in times of stress or in trouble. Let them reach out to you and help you in your times of need. But in order for them to do that, listen, you've got to do first what? Admit your needs. Now, I'm just going to say this. I realize that there are seasons of life, and there are members of our church who really don't, because you're taking care of an elderly family member, or you're working extra hours, or your job just forces you to work in evenings, and you can't figure out a way to get into a connect group, and there's certain times of life where you just can't get around it. I understand that. And if that's you, listen, I'm not talking to you today. But there are a few of you, about 20 to 25% of the adults in our congregation, who aren't committed to being in a connect group where you share your needs with others. And then the thing is, listen, a lot of you are saying, man, I don't need help. I don't need relationships with other people. Dude, Steve, I'm good. I just want to come to church on Sunday morning. I might even be willing to serve here and there and help other people, but I don't need it. And here's the thing is, you don't need your connect group. You're right, until you do. I'll say that again. You don't need your connect group until you do. And you don't just walk in and have relationships with people that are years strong on day one. Have you ever heard the expression, you can make new friends, but you can't make old friends? And that's what I want you to be a part. You're in the process of making new friends who will become old friends, who can be there for you in your hour of need. There's a video here I love. There's no sound on it, so I'm going to give you a little commentary as we go. Now, if you're like me, I like watching these Animal Planet shows because I like watching the lions eat little weak creatures, all right? I know I'm a stupid man, all right? All you guys are the same way. Don't act there and act like you're a sensitive animal lover. You like watching the animals be eaten, okay? So I'm watching this video. I've been in Africa, and I've actually watched jackals tear this little antelope apart, and it was awesome, all right? So, but this is not that. Watch. You see Mama coming over. Now, if you had the sound, you'd be able to hear, there's a call. I've actually seen this, that the water buffalo make. And when they call, the other water buffalo hear it, and this is one of those things, you don't need other water buffalo, what? Until you do. And so here comes the connect group, all right? And they beat the lions. And so I want to encourage you, listen, let your connect group, now, first of all, you got to be a part of one. But then even once you're a part of one, if you have a need, you got to tell your connect group what you need, especially if there's a physical need that you need. But a lot of times, man, we don't tell other people our needs because, man, we can just be a little like, I'm tough, I can handle it. I don't want to be a bother to anybody else, all right? Man, if I could use a case in point of this, I cleared it with my wife ahead of time. Because if I had to pick out one tough woman, it would be my wife, okay? She is a tough old bird. Her dad was a Vietnam pilot. If you ever see We Were Soldiers, if you've ever seen that movie with Mel Gibson, the pilot that flies people in and out, and they're throwing the bodies in the back and running them back to the MASH unit, he was the guy that flew in and out of those war zones. So he's seen a lot of ugly. And what that meant is when he was in his 20s and early 30s raising my wife, he raised her to be tough. She falls down, busts up her knee, and he looks at her like, you'll be all right. She's running around barefoot, she'll be fine. Maybe she's hurt, like a boyfriend will do something like that. You'll find somebody else. That was his counseling need. Like Marine Counseling Services 101, Jerry Bowman. He was tough, and he raised her to be tough. And so she got into gymnastics and cheerleading, and she's got so many injuries from all that stuff, like flipping. I showed a couple of our staff and friends, like when we first got together, like some gymnastics when I'm doing that. And then like that, our second date, we're down at Mountaineer Field, turf field. And when we were down there, I'm like, man, I tell you, one of the things that amazes me at ball games, I told her, I said, that cheerleader comes out at the beginning of the game, and that guy just flips whoop, 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 all the way down the field, and then he comes back. And she was like, well, I can do that. I'm like, oh, come on. I mean, she's 5'3", nothing, right? And she's like, no. And I'm like, show me how to do that. She's got jeans, didn't warm up, didn't stretch anything. She's, she likes Simone Biles. And she lands. And I'm like, ooh, I'm impressed, okay? But the thing is, like, her wrists are messed up. Like, she is so tough. She did this thing called natural childbirth. And let me tell you, there is nothing natural about that. You got to have powers from heaven or hell, one or the other. I don't know which it is. Take no drugs. Here comes the baby. Y'all told me, like, I'm taking morphine and everything when I got a little kidney stone. She's like, give me nothing. I'll bite on a bullet. And 3 kids. Like, here we go. So, man, she's a tough bird. I remember early in our dating relationship, we were just doing something, guys and girls dating, you're in college, you can wrestle around a little bit, you're just having fun or whatever. So I grab her, I throw her around, I'm like coming after her like I'm gonna do WWE off top rope. And she takes one of those muscular, can do 10 flips in the air legs, and she sticks her heel, she just gives it to me right in the ribs. And I'll tell you, after years of playing sports and all athletic endeavors I was a part of, that was the hardest shot I ever took in my life. I really think she bruised one of my ribs. It knocked the air out of me, but I couldn't let her know that, okay? So I'm like, she said, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I gotta go now. I gotta study, all right? So just stayed away from her for a week, because I'm walking around like Rocky after a bad fight or something, And so I just say all that to say my wife is tough. She is tough. And the counseling that her dad gave her, which is you'll be fine, I see that God used that to prepare her to be married to me someday, okay? And to be a pastor's wife. All that said, we're in New Zealand a few months ago, and she breaks her elbow. And recovery has been tough. She's been in casts, she's been in splints. Let me tell you what, they're like, you got to do the exercises. Or, like, don't tell her what she's got to do because she's going to kill herself trying to rehab, whatever. You picked the wrong one. And so, but I know it's like she's doing it. She's going to pain every night. And I'm like, honey, you need to take it easier or take some more drugs or do something. Like, no, I'm going to beat this thing, And it's, okay. But one day, like, I walk in our closet, and she's done laundry. While she's doing laundry, like I'll carry the basket. She's carrying it in one arm like this. Won't even ask me to help her. And I'm seeing her like she's jumping, trying to get the clothes hanger up on the thing. It's just too far for her little self. And I'm like, honey, if you're doing stuff like that and you need help, just fill in the blank. Help me. Ask. Just ask, and I will help you. But now I'm going to get myself in trouble. I know I'm going to get myself in trouble. This is the worst thing. I'm going to be called a misogynist, a bigot, a woman hater, but I'm just going to say it, all right? Ladies, any of you ladies in here been married to your husband for at least 50 years? Raise your hand if you've been married. You've been married? Sarah? Okay. How many years y'all been married? 62 years. All right, let's give him a hand. That's great. Bob, I got a question. I know it's not true of me. I'm on 35 this year. Can you read Sarah's mind? Do you have supernatural abilities to read Sarah's mind? Sarah, can he read your mind? Does he always know what you're thinking? Sometimes, but usually not, right? Usually not. And so what a lot of times women do is they project onto men their mind-reading capabilities. What do I mean by that? Like, ladies, raise your hand if at any point in here you have told a boyfriend or your husband, I know what you're thinking. Raise your hand if at any time you've said that. Look at all the hands in here that just went up. Let me tell you, ladies, listen, please. Men do not have that ability. We cannot read your mind. And so if you walk through the room carrying something like, men don't perceive that as, oh, maybe she needs help. We don't think that way. When you come into the kitchen and you say, look at all these dishes in the sink, it's overflowing. We don't perceive, we don't connect those dots. Maybe she wants me to do the dishes. Man, the garbage stinks. We don't think, maybe I should take it out. Like, if you don't admit your need, we ain't gonna pick up on it. We're not sensitive. Do y'all follow that? So, I wanna say this as a pastor at my last church. I was in a culture where it was expected if someone went in the hospital that the pastor had to visit there. And so, while I was in the youth pastor role, and I was still young and didn't care, sometimes I would hear people say about our senior pastor, well, I was in the hospital for a week, and Pastor Ron never came to visit me. And I was just being my smart 20-something self. I would just say, did Pastor Ron know you were there? Well, no, but if he was checking on me, I was like, hey, Bertha, he can't call every family every week and check on your health. He can't go if he don't know. So I want y'all to practice that phrase with me. You ready? I want you to say to each other, I can't go if I don't know. Say it. Right? Now, say to your neighbor while you're pointing at me, everybody point at me, turn to your neighbor and say, he can't go if he don't know. Now, here's the deal. If somebody's in the hospital and they want me to pray for them, I will gladly go. There's nobody on our staff. If you call us and say, I need you to come and pray with us, we will drop what we're doing and go right to the hospital and pray with you just as quickly as we can get over there. But we can't go if we don't know. I want to say this to you about your small groups. Don't ever complain what your small group will or won't do for you if you haven't asked them. And if you say, I just had a baby this week, just remember half your small group is probably men. They do not connect the dots. And a lot of times your women friend won't either. So if you say, oh, I hurt myself, I can't do anything around my house, don't assume that people know that is a hint for them to come over and help you at your house. If you have a need, you have to say like Jesus, I thirst. Do y'all follow me? That's for your family relationships. That's in your friend relationship. That's in your connect group relationship. It's not just when you're preparing for death do you say, I need some support here. You've got to be specific. Hey, I trust that you all care about me and you're willing to help. Here's specifically how you could help. Now, here's where I'm going to come after the guys. Now the guys are all going to hate me and I'm going to have no friends at the end of the day. Here it is. Listen, you know why most of your wives don't tell you what they need? Because when they lay their heart out there and say, I really need some support from you, you've let them down. They've told you, I need help, I need support, and then you forget about them. And it hurts them less to be ignored by you than it does for them to tell you their need and then you ignore them anyway. So they've just learned, I'm just not going to say anything because at least I can live under the ruse that maybe he just doesn't know that I'm hurting and I need his help. And guys can be like that too. I'm not going to put myself out there for fear that they won't reciprocate and give me what I need. And my friends, all I can say is this for your connect groups. If you reach out to them and you say, I need help, and you're specific about how you need help, and they don't help you, then let me or Bud George know, and Bud will go down and start whipping up on some people, okay? Because that's why we have connect groups. Do y'all hear that? It's for this. And you don't need a connect group, what? Until you do. If you're not in one, listen, right now it's a little late, it's the end of the year, but write connect@onechurch.org. We will get you in one soon. And Lord willing, at the latest, we'll have you in one by August. Okay? Now, let's keep going. After this, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, saying, my God, why have you forsaken me? Not only is he admitting his physical need when he says his thirst, but listen, we also have to be like Jesus in that we admit our spiritual pain and needs. Let God hear you. And listen, some of my best prayer times have been the ones when I cry out to God. Notice what Jesus is doing here. Could God have heard him if he would have whispered, God, I feel abandoned down here? Did Jesus' theology inform him that God can hear our thoughts even if they're not spoken? Did Jesus' theology know that? The answer to that is what? Of course he did. But yet he not only cried out, but he cried out how? With a loud voice. Man, sometimes, listen, It's not disrespectful. If it were disrespectful, Jesus would have disrespected God. Sometimes if God knows it's coming from a place of pain and you just cry out, God, I need some help down here. I don't know what you're doing, but my life's not going the way I thought it would. I thought I was doing what you wanted me to do, and now it's not going this way. Or I know I've really blown it, Lord, but I need a bailout. A key to God responding to your need is you still have to ask. And a lot of times you're sitting there like, well, God knows what I need. I know. Jesus knew God knew what Jesus needed, but yet Jesus screamed it out. There's a power, listen, there is a power in admitting your neediness. There's a healing that can come when you admit what your needs are. So my friends, listen, don't bottle it up inside. Let God hear your heart. Lesson number 4. Or lesson number 5. I'm going to go right to this one. I got to give a background on that. Jesus had a family. Joseph had passed away. Mary, his mother, but he also had brothers. James, firstborn of Joseph biologically, secondborn by Mary. James, Joseph, Judas, and Simon. These aren't the disciples. 4 brothers, and he also had some sisters. One day, his mother and his brothers came, and standing outside, they sent him, and they called him. And a crowd was sitting around him, and they said to him, your mother and brothers are outside seeking you. It'd be like if my family showed up, and they were outside right now. I'm still going to finish the sermon. Then I'll go out and see them. That's what Jesus is doing. And he answered them, well, who are my mothers and brothers? And looking around at those who sat around him, the congregation, he said, here are my mother and my brothers. For whoever does the will of God, he is my brother and sister and mother. Why do I share this? Jesus is stating a truth here. You've heard the expression before, blood is thicker than water. Listen, Christ's blood is thicker than family blood. Your Christian brothers and sisters are far closer to you spiritually than what your your biological non-Christian brothers and sisters. We see this with Jesus, and it was true of Jesus, it's going to be true of us. Listen, John 7:5 says, not even his brothers believed in him. They weren't buying the virgin birth story that Mary gave. They didn't believe his mom. They didn't believe Jesus himself. So much so that when Jesus was on the cross, none of the brothers are around. None of the sisters are around. Only Mary and her sister. Mary, the wife of Clopas, and then Mary Magdalene. They're there, but also with one apostle, and it's the Apostle John. And I think the reason John was there in part was because he was still a minor, and he wasn't worried about getting in trouble with the law. He's probably just 17 at this point. And when Jesus, watch this. This is something we don't talk about in church very much. When Jesus saw his mother and disciple whom he loved standing nearby, he said to his mother, woman, behold your son. And then he said to the disciple, behold your mother. And from that hour, the disciple took Mary to his own home. Did you catch what Jesus did here? He was not entrusting his mother's welfare, physically or spiritually, to 4 brothers who did not believe. It was James's responsibility. If Jesus is dead as the next in the firstborn line, Jesus said, I'm not entrusting them to that. I'm not my mother. My mother's going to be taken care of. Listen. Now this is serious. Lesson 5. Make sure this is from Jesus. Make sure those you are responsible for will be cared for both physically and spiritually. I want to say especially the parents of children in the room, young children, minors. If God forbid you and your wife were killed in a car wreck today, you and your spouse, would you have non-Christian brothers and sisters be responsible for the spiritual welfare of your children from this point forward? People who are not going to pray with your kids at night. People who are not going to make sure they're in church on Sunday morning or involved in the youth ministry, the children's ministry. I know this is something we don't talk about in church very often, but somehow we got it in our mind that, man, they're automatically going to go to the next of kin. And listen, according to the law, that is where they will go, unless what? You designate in a will, this is who I want to raise my kids after I'm gone. If we see Jesus doing that, he designated publicly for all to hear, as the firstborn, the responsibility of taking care of my mother is mine, and I now put that responsibility on my disciple John. Not James, not Joseph, not Judas, not Simon. A public declaration. And moms and dads, if you haven't done it, you need to do it. I've got an attorney friend here. His name's Rush Hicks. He was in first service. I don't expect, Rush, you're not here now. I didn't think you would stay for two. We'll have his number here at the church. And if you want to come up with a simple will, just if my wife and I would both pass away, this is who we want to watch our children. Your family doesn't even have to know about it. It's just going to be on a will, and make sure other people know you know where that will is. You don't need to have the fight with your family about it. Just put it in the will. But there's another thing to consider. If it's just a simple will like that, he'll do it. Need to pay his secretary $100 just to do the fine. He's not making any money off that. If it's going to get more complicated that, where you're getting in trusts and mortgages and stocks and all that stuff, we got other attorneys that will spend some more time with you. Rush will do the quick one, right? But if you have more time, we're going to have a list at the church office. People that will spend more time with you working out some more details. But not only do you need to watch who's taking care of the children entrusted to you, I want to say this. Who's going to take care of the financial resources God has entrusted to you? I want to give you a little biblical advice here from a guy named Dave Ramsey. Now, some of you wives are like, but they're my babies. I'm just telling you, man, tell your spouse right now, if they're here with you, it's the Lord's money. I didn't hear very many voices. There's nobody here with her spouse? Dennis said, my wife already knows that. I don't have to tell her. Dee and I have already told our kids this. Now, right now, all three of them are walking with the Lord, but we've told them, like, if any of y'all go nuts, you're not following Jesus, you're not getting a penny from me. Why? Because it's not my money, it's not Dee's money. It's God's money, and I'm not going to turn God's money over to doofuses, as Dave Ramsey says. So that's what Jesus is saying, like, everything that I got right now, it's going, John, take care of my mom. Now, finally, let's close out the sermon. Jesus says two last things. It is finished. And he bowed his head, gave up his spirit. And the main point I want to make about this is you're going to have to come back next week. I'm going to talk about it at Easter. Okay? That's the key thing next week. It is finished. If you want to read that chapter, be familiar with it, that's where we're going to be spending our time. And then finally, after he says it is finished, he said, Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. And having said this, he breathed his last. And here's my last point for you, last slide. The last thing Jesus needed to say is the first thing we need to say. And that's what I'm telling you, my friends, listen, that is all that's going to matter when you're on your deathbed, is have you given your life to Jesus? Jesus knew when he was about to die. You don't. And so The best thing that you can do, of all these steps I gave you, like prepare to die, the first thing we have to do is the last thing we see Jesus doing is saying, Jesus, I commit to you my spirit. I'm giving you my heart. I'm giving you my soul. And really, everything else I said today makes zero sense unless you first say to Jesus, everything I've got, I commit to you. So as you consider, you're sitting here this morning like, hey, make sure your wife's being taken care of. Man, I gotta get a will, and I gotta designate who's gonna take care of my wife, or who's gonna take care of my husband, who's gonna take care of my kids. I gotta take care of that will. That's gotta be done. We got people here down at the church. You can call down, they'll get you hooked up with some life insurance. You need to have that. If you're a responsible parent, you need to have that. But listen, that is nothing compared to having your soul ready to go into eternity. Do you see that? As important it is to providing for your wife and children, more important than that is providing the way to heaven. And Jesus did that for you. You just have to accept it. You just have to receive that. Are you ready to spend eternity with your family in heaven? Are you ready to pass on to the other side? That begins with committing your life to Christ. If you haven't done that before, will you do that with me now? Jesus, just as we close this service today. We commit our lives to you. We give you our souls. We give you our hearts. Father, if there be anybody in this room right now who hasn't received you as their Savior, will they pray this prayer with me right now? Jesus, I admit my need. I'm not going to end up in hell because I'm prideful. I'm coming to you now, Lord. I admit my need. I need to be forgiven. Forgive me, Lord, please. I commit my soul to you. I believe you rose from the grave, and I also believe that you can raise my spirit from the grave and take me to be with you in paradise. That's why I'm asking, just like the thief on the cross, I'm asking. Father, for whoever prayed that prayer right now, just remove them from the darkness that they've been in. And may they look to the Lord of Lords and the King of Kings, who can prepare them for the day when you do call them to judgment. And we pray this in Christ's name.